is your American name, Ed? And notice her teeth look real good, and Gordy fixed her teeth. You don't look as green as last time I saw you in the sailboat with Puget Sound ever. So, I'm just about done here as your program chair, so just one final sort of a note that just remember the views and speakers aren't always the views of your program chair, unless they're from 192 Brewing or Attorney Oklahoma. Today our speaker will deliver a message of hope through the power of living a life with gratitude. He's written 4 books on gratitude. Please welcome David George Brooks.
Thank you, Scott. Boy, some great stories today. September 29th, 1998 was a Tuesday. I woke up, it was about 6 o'clock, and I looked over in bed and I couldn't find my wife. Now, that's strange. And just about the time I was wondering where she was, my 4-year-old son walks in, Connor, and goes, "Where's Mom?" I go, "I don't know." And then Kyle comes in. Kyle's 14. Couldn't figure out what had happened. So we walk down the hallway, we look in a couple of bedrooms, don't see her, look in the kitchen, and we look downstairs and I can see her in front of the washer and dryer face down. And she's kind of curled up and kind of scrunched over. And so we go rushing down there and turn her over, and there's stuff coming out of her mouth and things. It doesn't look good. So Connor starts crying. Kyle goes up and calls the police and the fire and the aid and everything. And within a matter of minutes, the house must have 15, 25 people there. They take her out into the room and they got these wires and those paddles, all that kind of thing you've seen only on TV. You think you're probably having some sort of a dream or nightmare maybe. And they keep working on her, and Connor is inconsolable. He keeps, "What's wrong with Mommy?" And I said, "It's okay, Connor." And for those of you that have ever gone through something like this, you know that time loses all measure. And it seemed like it had just been a few minutes, and this little short fire person, not fireman or lady, thank you, comes over to me and goes, "Mr. Brook, we've been working on your wife for an hour and a half, and we still don't have any heartbeat. Would you like us to continue?" And even in a state of shock, you know that your brain still is able to at least function to the point where I thought, well, it means she hasn't had any blood flow to her brain. And I said, "No, you can stop." And she was dead. And I remember thinking right then, I don't know if in my life I'd ever been in a situation before where I had to make a life and death decision about somebody to say, "You can stop." And what had happened is that she had been overdosed on prescription medication. And I listened to stories about challenges with children and different things that have happened. But what was so amazing to me is that what drove me to gratitude ultimately, it wasn't just Dana's death back 15 years ago this September. And as I mentioned, the boys were 4 and 14. It's that I had lost so many people in my life that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it. And I talked to a lot of groups 2 or 3 times a week. I was telling Jeff and Scott and Craig. And there's always a lot of people in the audience that'll come up to me afterwards. And yes, they buy books, and yes, they talk to me, which is great. And this gratitude journal, which is the centerpiece to the whole thing that's really kind of saved me. But people go through a really, really tough time. Life is very, very difficult. And we have all these negative, unbelievably destructive coping mechanisms. And it's drinking and it's pills and it's all this kind of stuff. In fact, I read something today in Bellevue, and I know Officer Steve just left, but he might verify this out here. They find these houses burglarized all the time, and they walk past the money, the computers, the laptops, everything, and the medicine cabinets are stripped for the medication. So what had happened is I noticed when you're in shock, and again, I always know there's enough people in any given group that have been through something very similar to what I've been through. I just happen to be the one up front talking about it. But within 2 or 3 days, the shock of this, the numbness, the actual just feeling it's not a nightmare, and you wake up and you pinch yourself and it's still real. And I remember thinking, I really don't think I can do this. And I walked up on this little deck we had out in the back of the off the dining room, and I kind of just stared up at the sky, and I thought, now I see why people kill themselves. And I never thought that in my life. But within that same moment, I also made a decision. I'm not killing myself. Connor's 4, Kyle's 14. I got to raise these guys. A lot of you talked about children today. Is there anything that we're prouder of than our children? At least hopefully most of us, these people that don't stay off drugs and do these nonsense things. But But I thought about it and I thought, okay, so I'm going to have to find something. I'm going to have to figure out something that's going to work for me. And not only had I lost Dana, but I graduated from Queen Anne High School. There were 550 of us in 1968. 150 of them are dead. 2 or 3 of my buddies died, the first 2 of them, I should say, on the night we graduated from high school in Dexter in a car accident. 3 or 4 more guys in Vietnam. My father was a very prominent attorney, committed suicide. I don't even understand that one, with a shotgun, different things. And there's actually quite a few more. So I started thinking, I'm not going to go drink. My fraternity brothers say, we're surprised you're not living under a bridge drinking whiskey every day. And I thought, I got to bounce back. So I really realized a lot of it depends on how you look at things. It just comes back down to how you look at things. And we've all had struggles. So just to prove a point real briefly, I know it's early in the morning. I'd like you to all stand up if you would. And I want, this is an exercise. I know we already have Miss Pilates over here. I think that was Robin, if I'm not mistaken. We're not going down to the dock. But I'd just like you to all raise your right hand and start turning in a clockwise manner, like this. Now, it's early, I'll show you my watch. This is clockwise, okay? So keep it stretched out there. Now just start bringing it down slowly. Keep it going clockwise. Bring it down slowly to the top of your head, about to your eyes, nose, chin, chest, stomach. Now which direction is it going?
Oh.
Julie. Is it Julie?
No, I wish I were Julie.
What's your name? I can't read it.
Oh, Heidi.
Heidi, what happened? You can sit down.
I screwed up. Let me try it again.
I can always count on somebody. I don't remember turning a different direction right in the middle of that. But it's just my way of illustrating that it just depends on how you look at things. So I decided along the way that I'm going to have to find something. But in the meantime, I'm going to have to take the attitude you can't give up. I do a daily video every single day on YouTube. I've got almost 300 on there now, and it's on gratitude. 2 minutes. I send out a featured video of the week every Monday at 7:45. People come up to me all the time and they say to me, so how do you come up with a new subject for gratitude? And I just start laughing. You're kidding me. You mean there's not an infinite amount of things we can be grateful for? How about the fact we're all just sitting here? We're all vertical. There's so many, many things. And we get so just pounded by this negativity. But I realize that it comes back to, if you're going to look at this as clockwise or counterclockwise or whatever, it just depends on how you're going to view your life. And if you look at it as you can never give up, that's a choice that you have. And Connor, who was 4 at the time, had all sorts of difficulty. So he's in kindergarten, and the teachers get him evaluated, and they call me in and they say, your kid's a mess. I said, his mother just died 6 months ago. For gosh sakes, I'm barely holding it together. Well, we need to do some assessments. We need to do some tests. They bring him in for 8 hours of tests. And it's bouncing balls and gross motor and fine motor, and I can barely keep it together. This is only 6 months since Dana's passed on. So at the end of the thing, they send him out to the car, and actually I can see where I can watch the car. And I'm sitting there talking to her, and she goes, you got all sorts of problems with this kid of yours. This is the way she talked. I remember right where it was. And I said, well, let me tell you something. We were living by Green Lake. I said, he is going to be the quarterback at Roosevelt High School someday. And she goes, no, he's not going to be a quarterback. He's not going to play sports. He's not going to do anything. So I said, okay. Of course, somebody usually yells out from the audience, did you get her name?
Yeah.
So I walk out to the car. I get in the car, and I just burst into tears. I can't stop crying. So I drive home. And over the next few years, I started to believe maybe they were right. Because I was a decent athlete. And Connor wanted to play all the sports, but he couldn't do anything. And here's a concept I don't understand, again, for all of you that have children, T-ball. How are you not able to hit the ball when it's just sitting on the tee? I mean, it's right here. How do you hit the tee or swing up here? It's just sitting there. But he kept trying. Coach pitch, T-ball, the whole deal. Never gave up. But I'll tell you what, it was just murder as a parent to watch this. Go back into the dugout, hands in his face, crying, tears coming down. Couldn't hit, couldn't run, couldn't throw, couldn't catch. And I thought, but you know what, Connor? You got to stick with it. We stuck with it when Mom passed away. We stuck with it with all these other things that happened to us. And I said, you know what? You're going to do it someday. So we get to May 31st, 2005. And he's still playing Little League. Still having not much success. So it's the bottom of the 7th. There's 2 outs. His team is down 7-6. There's guys on second and third. Guess who comes walking out of the dugout to come up to the plate? I just look up and I just go, can I just get a walk? How about maybe a hit by a pitch? And I swear, somebody looked down, oh, now you pick a time to pray? Mm-hmm. So it's ball 1, strike 1, ball 2, full count. Next pitch comes in. He rips the ball down the third baseline, goes just inside the bag. The guy from third comes in to score. The guy from second rounds third. He's heading for home. Here comes the ball. Here comes the guy, the catcher. The catcher catches it. They all crash at home plate. The ball pops out. They win the game 8-7. Connor is standing on second base. The entire dugout comes out, puts him on their shoulders, carries him off the field. I couldn't talk for an hour. I still get a lump in my throat today. And when we got home that night, I sat him down and I said, Connor, it was never about baseball. It was about the fact that you never gave up. And today, as a matter of fact, he is graduating from Bothell High School. There's his little picture. And he's a starting pitcher on the baseball team. So it proved to me that you can't give up. And so what I really realized, we all have our stories. We all have these moments in our life when we come to a T in the road where you got to take a left or you got to take a right. But I realized through this journey I wasn't going to make it unless I figured out something that was going to help me, and it wasn't going to be pills or booze or some of this nonsense. A buddy of mine says to me, you need to get a gratitude journal. Now here, how many have ever heard of a gratitude journal? Okay, a few hands. Perfect. How about any kind of a journal? How about even ever seen a journal? Just in a bookstore or something. So, well, that was kind of me. What is a gratitude journal? It's something you write in every day of everything you're grateful for. Well, I said, is that like a diary or a journal or a daily journal or something? He goes, it's a gratitude journal, Dave. That's why the word gratitude is in there with journal. So I buy this gratitude journal. I go on Amazon, I get it. And I do what a lot of people do. I just put it on the shelf and didn't touch it for 3 months. I thought, what is wrong with you? I thought this is why you did it. So I took it out, started writing in it. And I noticed changes happening over and over and over again. And then eventually I did my own, the Brooker's Daily Gratitude Journal. And so what I want to do is I want to do a little exercise. I'm going to have Judy pass out some. What she's passing out is the left-hand side. Well, this is all written in my journal. But it's a reproduction of the left-hand side. So hopefully if you don't have a pen, I've got extra pens over here. But before we get to that exercise, and you'll see, it's just a reproduction of the left-hand side of the journal. I want to ask people here, I always like to know what my daily number is. So whatever number I was in, it went up when Jeff came up and said hi to me this morning on his bike and asked me if he could help me bring in some bags. Are you the speaker? Of course, I always want to say something smart, ask like, should I have worn a suit or do I not look like I'm the speaker? And he's on his bike looking good, and he's like 10 years younger than me, looks 10 years older than me, looks 10 years younger than I do. So I was immediately jealous of him. But I started thinking about, I always like to give myself a daily number. And you'll see that's on this little sheet too. 10 is the best day of your life, 1 is the worst day of your life. So just by way of an exercise, it's just going to take a couple of minutes. I'd like to know how many people today sitting here, now this is emotionally, financially, spiritually, mentally, physically, that whole world that you live in, this number. How many here today are a 10? Okay, a handful. Oh, more than a handful, 4 or 5. How many are a 9? Okay, a few more. How many are an 8? A lot more. And 7. Okay, and 6. Okay, so beyond 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're not going to talk about that because those are people that I don't want to embarrass or talk about what's going on in their life. But it makes such a big difference. I love to identify that number. So here's what I'd like you to do. You'll see in front of you, does everybody have a paper and a pen? Great. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Here's what I'd like you to do. There's a little thing at the top that says your daily number on the right-hand side. I'd like you to put that number in just a second. And then it says your current event, special occasion. Don't worry about that. What am I grateful for? I'd like you to write 2 sentences on that. And at the very bottom of the page, it says, what is your highlight of the day? Now, that'll be from yesterday. So if you can take 2 minutes, and then we're going to get a little feedback. So I'll give you 2 minutes starting now. Thank you. About a minute? About 15 seconds. Okay. You, of course, can keep writing later. We talked about the numbers already, but I would be curious to know who would like to share something that they were grateful for that they wrote down. Yes.
I'm so grateful for the time with my daughter, Lisa, my beautiful daughter, shopping and sharing the gift of happiness for new experiences, but most of all, coming home to a beautiful garden and a grateful husband.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes.
My wife had cancer for the improved condition of my wife, number one, and a successful trip to New Jersey with a mission trip working on construction for the hurricane.
Excellent. Tremendous. Anyone? Yes, Craig.
Well, good health. Without that, nothing else is important.
When running, you're doing triathlon?
Yeah.
You say too? Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, with this, I was saying that to Jeff too when we walked in. A book he and I read called Younger Next Year. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Of course, bleach your teeth, but don't dye your hair if you're a guy. Yes.
I am grateful for my family and that everyone right now is healthy and happy. And I am grateful that I'm cancer-free for 5 years.
Oh, tremendous. Okay, how about a highlight or two from yesterday? Yes.
The grants are written.
Yes.
Yeah, you were working on that. That's a great highlight. Yes.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. Excellent. Yes, sir.
My son's 8th grade concert and the final elementary concert I have.
Any other highlights from yesterday? Connor, thank you. Connor was 4, as I mentioned, when Dana passed away. And he's now, as I showed you his picture, he's graduating today, actually, at Comcast Arena from Bothell High School. And he is 6'2", that has done extremely well. I held him back in first grade based on what they said turned out to be a wise decision, but has done extremely well and is heading off to San Diego for college. But even at 19, 6'2", and a typical male, he still slips and calls me daddy when he says goodnight. And 9 times out of 10, that's my highlight of the day, is Connor saying goodnight daddy, because it still chokes me up, and it's, as I said, it's almost 15 years since Dana passed away. So it's made such a big difference. But let me just mention this, actually, before we go forward. So now, you've done that little exercise, so let's try this again. How many people here feel they're a 10? Okay, look, quite a few more hands. How about a 9? And an 8? Thank you. It almost always doubles after that exercise. We live in this world where we're constantly, as I said, bombarded with negativity. Just turn on the news, we get 1,000 channels, it's the whole thing. But there's something about it, when you talk about it, and when you think about it, when you write about it, when you put it in your mind, when you think about it, it's like a dream. When you talk about it, it inspires you. But when you write about it, it empowers you. Writing grants, they can't just say, I want to get this grant, can we just call it in? You got to write it down. Why did we take notes in high school and college? That's how you remember things. You can go back and refer what that daily number was. You can go back and look at these things. It makes such a huge difference. And how I feel about it is like this brain up here that we all have is like our CPU and our computer, but really what drives us and what comes from us comes from our heart. The thought may start here. It goes to our heart, goes to our arm, down into our hand, to that pen, onto that paper. And that's what really solidifies it. And that's why I so highly recommend a daily gratitude journal. Now, I'm not going to attempt to guess ages around here. actually have a gratitude app for the phone now. But if you can't order it unless you're under 30, because this generation today I don't have time for that. What's that journal thing? What's a pen? I get this all the time for these kids. I mean, I just put everything on here. But you actually put in, I'm so grateful that Craig and Scott invited me here today, and it types it. So it'll be there. But there's something about writing it that's so powerful. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to give away a couple of books, and then I've got a couple other things I want to do. So if you got a business card, take out a business card. And I also have got, if you don't have one, you can use one of mine at the table and just put your name on it, because I always like to give away a couple of books. And I have done, as Scott had mentioned, a number of books. I noticed today this one's called Happiness Starts with Gratitude. 50 Gratitude Lessons to Direct, Inspire, and Empower You. I mistakenly grabbed my school edition, so don't be offended that the print is so large. It kind of looks like C Spot Run, and I just thought that's one I usually, because I get to speak to schools quite a bit. So, and one quick thing, hold on, before you put that in there. I do this daily video every day, but every Monday I send out this video. If you don't want that video, put an X on your card. I send it out at 7:45 on Monday morning. And very, very passionate about it, because it's always 2 minutes long and it's just a little subject for that day. So, and all these are 50 different aspects to be grateful for. And let me mention something else too. I never knew I was going to be fortunate enough to be an author, to do a journal like this or a book. But it's also very humbling, because the other day, last week, I did a talk, and so she comes up to get the book. And everybody's clapping, and I go, congratulations, here's your book. And I go, would you like me to sign it? She goes, that's okay. So, of course, I immediately got put back in my place. Yes.
I get, and it's not daily, it's once in a while, but there is on my email, goodnews.com. And it is actual news from the news about someone getting...
Oh, nice.
It's good news.
It's goodnews.com?
Yes.
I'm going to remember that.
Can I give everybody
That's
card?
excellent. That's excellent.
Does anybody need a card?
All right, so let me draw for a couple here. If you want me to sign it, great. If you don't, I'll understand. But you do have to come up front to get it. Ed Sterner. Oh my God. And the second one, I liked your talk, Ed, too, by the way. Julie. Thank you, Ed.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And again, Ed and Julie, I will sign them if you want. All right, last thing I'd like to talk about. I'm fortunate enough to do workshops where most of these talks I do at Rotary. I'm actually a member of Seattle 4, and I get to speak there in December, which I'm very excited about. And I get to speak to a lot of Rotaries and Chambers and Kiwanis and so forth. But I do a 2-hour workshop, which is really more intense, and it's all about embracing gratitude as the first module. It takes as long as it takes as the second one. Cleaning out your brain. I do some really neat things because we get a lot of junk in there. And when it's like goodnews.com, you need to fill it with the right things. And gratitude will change and impact your life in ways you can't even imagine. And then the gratitude journal itself. And then the last thing is sharing gratitude. So many things in life aren't really valuable or as valuable, let's put it that way, unless you share them. So I think about stories that I told. I had breakfast with 3 of my fraternity brothers on Monday, and we always share these stories, and they get more embellished every single year, and that's 40 years ago. But there's something about sharing it. So what is Rotary? Service above self. It's about sharing. It's about getting out there. It's about, Ed, you spoke about having more time not as a litigator, but to get out there and do the law thing, but then to help people. That's what Rotary represents. And so many service organizations, Kiwanis and Lions, that I'm blessed enough to be able to speak to, understand that. But it's sharing, and that's where the real value is, rather. So I'm going to wrap up with a story that, at least to me, illustrates why that's so valuable. I learned how to fly when I was 27 years old, and I've flown on and off for a number of years. And there's phenomenal pride I take in being a pilot and knowing what it takes to fly one of those little airplanes. And I was caught down in ocean shores. Any pilots here, by the way? Usually there's a handful in the audience. And I was flying VFR, Visual Flight Rules. which means you can't be above the clouds or in the clouds. And I got stuck between two cloud layers. And so I'm flying along probably 160 knots, and all of a sudden I'm stuck between these two clouds right above the ocean. And the sun comes in and hits these clouds, and it just starts this kaleidoscope of color. And I'm going fast, so it's just coming at me over and above and below the plane, rather. And it was like that scene out of 2001 with that color, you know, Space Odyssey. It was just like unbelievable. I just actually just froze, and my eyes were just huge, and I was just hanging onto this yoke. It felt like it was something surreal. And it probably lasted 30 seconds. It felt like 5 or 6 minutes. But just as soon as I popped into it, I popped out of it. Bam! And I'm on the outside. And here's out in the clear blue sky. There's the sand. There's the ocean. And I looked to my right and I went, is that not the coolest amount of colors you've ever, is that not the best thing you've ever seen in your entire, I mean, that was just incredible, wasn't it? And I realized I was flying by myself. Of course, I was talking to myself. But I realized nobody ever gets to see that story or know that story except me. I had nobody to share it with. And it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And you think about those of us that have had kids and sharing those moments with our children, watching Connor with that particular day when he hit that game-winning hit. When you share those stories, it just makes the whole experience so much richer. So that's the same thing with gratitude. So embrace gratitude, think about it, talk about it, write about it. It can completely transform your life. I'm convinced it not only transformed and changed my life, but it truly saved my life. Thank you so much.
David, thank you. That was definitely a blue ribbon program. Thank you, Scott, for arranging it. That was good. As a Rotarian, you'll know with Rotary First Harvests, we're going to make a donation.